hit that subscribe button, if you dare. Because once you walk into the shadows with us today, there's no walking back into the light. Welcome to the story of the world hard as cold as the most terrifying fortress ever built for gangsters. CECOT, El Salvador's massive mega-prison, and the one case that exposed its darkest secret. It began at 4:13 a.m., under a bruised sky that looked like it had been scraped raw by lightning. Rain hammered the rusted roofs of a forgotten rural town outside Tecoluca. From the outside, everything was silence, but on the inside, chaos was erupting. A police convoy was tearing down the mud-soaked road, sirens low but lights off, the kind of approach reserved for emergencies, or for something even worse. Inside the lead armored truck, Inspector Mariana Reyes gripped the steel handle above her seat as the wheels bounced violently. Her jaw was tight, her voice controlled, but her knuckles were pale. "Tell me again," she said. "You're sure the tip wasn't trap?" Her partner, veteran investigator Daniel Arroyo, checked the message again on the encrypted tablet. The sender was anonymous, just a burner signal traced to somewhere near CECOT's perimeter. "It came with coordinates," Arroyo replied. "No message, just a location. And this picture." He turned the screen toward her. A single image, blurry, grainy, but unmistakable. A man's face, young, terrified, pressed against a chain-link fence, eyes wide like he'd seen something that didn't belong in this world. Inspector Reyes felt something cold slide down her spine. The man in the photo wasn't an inmate. He was a guard, and according to prison records, he hadn't shown up for his shift in 3 days. The convoy screeched to a halt near the indicated location, an abandoned livestock warehouse sitting like a corpse in the mud. The roof had collapsed inward, creating a jagged silhouette against a faint sunrise. The officers fanned out, weapons drawn. Reyes pushed forward, her boots sinking into the filthy ground. She felt tension stretch in the air like thin wire. When they reached the door, she nodded to Arroyo. He kicked it open. The smell hit them first, metallic, damp, and unmistakably rotten. Inside, a single hanging light bulb swung gently, casting shadows that danced across the walls. And on the floor, slumped against a wooden post, was the missing prison guard, dead, hands tied, mouth gagged, expression frozen in sheer panic. But that wasn't the worst part. Carved into his forearm was a symbol, a circle with 2 intersecting slashes, a marking used by gangs for decades in coded messages. But this one had been modified, distorted, almost ritualistic. Reyes crouched beside the body. This wasn't a robbery. This was a warning. Arroyo scanned the walls with his flashlight. From who? All the big players are inside CECOT now. Locked down. No communication. No power. Reyes exhaled slowly. Then someone wants us to believe otherwise. Back in San Salvador, CECOT towered like a monstrous steel labyrinth. 8 housing modules, watchtowers that stabbed the sky, and a perimeter wall that could survive a war. If there was any place in the world where a gang message should not be coming from, it was this one. But when Reyes and Arroyo arrived at the Central Command Center hours later, something felt wrong. Officers moved more stiffly than usual. Whispers replaced standard procedure, and the entire place carried an undercurrent of fear, like a pressure building beneath the floor. Warden Ernesto Cardenas, a rigid man with sharp features and a voice like gravel, greeted them with forced composure. "I've already been informed of the body," he said. "But I assure you, nothing in this prison is out of order." Reyes studied him carefully. His jaw twitched slightly. "Atel, we're not here to question your systems," she said calmly. "Just to access surveillance logs for the last 72 hours. Cardenas paused, just long enough to raise suspicion, before nodding. "As you wish." He led them into the surveillance room, a vast chamber filled with monitors showing every inch of the mega prison. Thousands of inmates, lines of uniforms, cells sealed, corridors empty except for guards. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Arroyo stepped closer. "Where are the time stamps?" "Temporarily offline," Cardenas replied. "Technical glitch. We're repairing them." Reyes stiffened. CECOT was known for its advanced security, biometric systems, constant monitoring, backup power. A time-stamp failure, conveniently lining up with a guard's suspicious murder? The odds were microscopic. Let's review footage near Tower 7, Reyes said. Cardenas hesitated again. Tower 7's cameras are undergoing maintenance. Since when? Arroyo asked. Cardenas glanced at his clipboard. 3 days ago. Exactly when the guard disappeared. Reyes felt her pulse quicken. She stepped in front of Cardenas. Warden, are you hiding something? His eyes hardened. Inspector, this facility is under strict control. Nothing leaves without my authorization, and nothing enters without me knowing it. Whatever happened to your guard, it wasn't here. But his voice cracked on the last word. Arroyo turned to Reyes. We need to see the cell blocks. Cardenas sighed, defeated. Fine, but stay close. The walk through CECOT felt like descending into a steel cavern. The clank of boots on metal grated against the hollow walls. Inmates watched from behind bars, their eyes sharp, calculating, hungry. Reyes noticed something unsettling. They weren't shouting, or threatening, or taunting. They were quiet, silent, as if they knew something no one else did. A cold sweat formed on the back of her neck. They reached the entrance of Block 4, the wing notorious for housing former high-ranking gang lieutenants. Cardenas swiped his ID card, but the door didn't open. He frowned. Swiped again. Nothing. A guard rushed over. Sir, all internal access panels reset an hour ago. We're locked out until we reauthorize from the central system. Reyes stared to the window's small rectangle of reinforced glass. Inside, the hallway lights were flickering, and one single cell door, number 418, was open, wide open. Arroyo exhaled. That's impossible. Every door here opens only by command. Reyes stepped closer. Who's inside 418? The guard checked his tablet. That cell was empty. Scheduled for new intake next week. Reyes felt something shift, the sense that they had crossed an invisible threshold. Then why? She whispered. Is there a shoe on the floor? Pressing her face to the glass. She looked harder. A black boot, military grade, standard issue for guards, not inmates. And next to it, barely visible in the flickering light, a streak of blood leading deeper into the block. Reyes swallowed. Someone had been dragged. Recently, and not just anywhere, dragged into the most secure prison in the hemisphere, or dragged from within it. Her radio crackled sharply. Inspector Reyes, you need to come to the control room. Now, we found something. She turned. What did you find? There was a long, trembling pause. A second message. Same symbol. Carved on one of our trucks. And there's writing beneath it. What does it say? The officer's voice dropped to a whisper. It says, he was only the first. Reyes felt her heartbeat crash against her ribs. Only the first, meaning there would be more. But nothing prepared her for what came next. As they reached the control room door, Cardenas rushed past them toward the monitors. Officers pointed at one screen that flickered violently before stabilizing. It was the inside view of Block 4, Cell 418. The camera zoomed automatically, focusing on the back wall. A message written in blood. We are not alone in here. Reyes froze, because below that sentence was something else. A handprint, fresh, large, and definitely not from any inmate registered inside that block. When the system enhanced the image, Reyes stepped back in horror. It wasn't one handprint. It was 3, stacked, overlapping, from 3 different people, inside a cell that was supposed to be empty. Arroyo whispered, voice shaking. Mariana, who the hell is in this prison? Reyes didn't answer, because at that exact moment, every light in the block went out, and the monitors turned to static. Then, from somewhere deep within CECOT, a scream, not an inmate's, a guard's, and as the alarm began to wail, Reyes understood. They weren't dealing with a prisoner breakout. They were dealing with something far worse. A breach from inside the most secure prison in the world. And whoever, or whatever, caused it was still in there, waiting. The alarm didn't just echo through CECOT. It vibrated, like the concrete itself was shuddering with fear. Red strobes washed over the walls in violent bursts, painting every metal surface in bloodlight. Officers sprinted through corridors, radios crackling, boots thundering. But even with all that noise, one sound cut through it like a knife. The scream. It came again. Short, piercing, snatched out of existence as fast as it appeared. Inspector Mariana Reyes and Daniel Arroyo charged down the steel stairs, pushing past a cluster of guards trying to override the locks to Block 4. The command center had fallen into raw panic. Officers shouting conflicting orders, screens glitching, communication lines failing one by one. Reyes planted her palms on the guard console. How long has Block 4 been dark? The technician shook as he typed. 17 minutes. Someone forced an internal reset. I've never seen. Wait, look. All monitors for Block 4 flipped from static to black. Black wasn't normal. Static meant malfunction. Black meant manual override. Someone had killed the feed deliberately. Arroyo swore under his breath. This is inside work. Has to be. Reyes didn't answer. Her mind was racing, flipping through every possibility, every protocol, every failure point. CECOT wasn't supposed to have cracks. It was built to crush them. Then why did it feel like something had split open wide enough to swallow people whole? The warden stormed in, rage trembling beneath his voice. All right, everyone calm down. Initiate full lockdown. No one gets in or out until we know what. He stopped mid-sentence, because on the far screen, a message appeared in crimson letters. System access. Overridden. Beneath it, the same symbol carved into the dead guard's arm. The circle with two intersecting slashes materialized on every monitor, flickering like a taunt. Cardenas' face drained of color. Who put that there? The technician stammered. Sir, this isn't coming from anywhere in our systems. What do you mean? It's not local. Someone is broadcasting this straight into our monitors from a closed internal network. Reyes grabbed the keyboard. Trace it. The technician typed rapidly. The symbol kept blinking, multiplying across screens. I can't, he whispered. It's bouncing through ports that don't exist. It's like... The screen went white. A new line appeared. Block 4 is open. Find him. Arroyo's eyes narrowed. Find who? But they all knew the answer. Whoever had left 3 blood-soaked handprints in an empty cell. The emergency override finally clicked, and the heavy steel doors of Block 4 slid open with a screech like metal screaming. A team of 10 officers entered first, flashlights trembling across the pitch-dark hallway. Reyes and Arroyo followed at the rear. The air inside felt colder, unnaturally cold, as if the thick walls were holding their breath. Lights flickered weakly, unable to fully reanimate. The long corridor stretched ahead of them, lined with reinforced doors. Inmates gripped the bars, silent, tense, eyes trained on something deeper inside, something that terrified even them. Officer Vega whispered from the front, "Why aren't they yelling?" "They always yell." Reyes scanned the faces behind the bars. Every inmate stood rigid, every gaze fixed on the far end. One man whispered hoarsely, "Don't go down there." Vega turned. "Why not?" The inmate shook his head slowly. "Because we heard him." Reyes stepped closer. "Heard who?" The man swallowed. "The one who isn't an inmate. The one they brought in last night." Reyes felt her chest tighten. "No one was booked last night." "That's what's wrong," the inmate whispered. "He wasn't booked. He was dragged." Dragged, like the guard whose boot they'd found. Arroyo's voice lowered to a murmur. "Mariana, something isn't adding up. We need to fall back, regroup, call in reinforcement." Then they saw it. At the end of the hall, a body lay spread on the concrete floor, half in shadow. Reyes sprinted forward. It was a guard, young, barely 20. His throat wasn't cut. There was no stab wound, no gunshot. He was simply dead, eyes wide, terror frozen into them. Arroyo bent down, examining the skin. No marks, no sign of struggle. Reyes pointed at his wrist. Bruises, circular ones, as if someone had gripped him hard enough to leave a perfect imprint of fingers. Large fingers. Too large. Vega whispered shakily, "What did this?" A soft metallic clang echoed from deeper inside Block 4. They all turned their flashlights. Cell 418's door was still open. Reyes led the approach, every step echoing through her bones. Inside the cell, the air was warmer, humid even, as if someone had been there recently. The message on the wall was smeared now, streaked downward as if brushed by a hand. But something new was on the floor. Arroyo picked it up with a glove, a prison ID card. Reyes read the name, Osman Calderon, a known gang operative, a man believed to have vanished years earlier after a failed operation. But he wasn't dead. He had been here, in an empty cell. No movement, no screaming, no communication. Just vanished from the world and placed inside the most secure prison on earth without anyone knowing. Reyes turned to the warden. Why was he brought here? Cardenas looked confused. He wasn't. I never authorized. From behind them, a door slammed. Hard. Vega spun around. We're locked in. Lights flickered again, then went out completely. They were swallowed in absolute darkness. Breaths quickened. Radios crackled with interference. Reyes felt her heartbeat pounding in her ears. Hairs lifted on her arms. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. A faint sound traveled through the block. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Not the hurried boots of a guard. Not the dragging shuffle of an inmate. Something else. Moving toward them from the far corridor. Officers raised their weapons blindly. Who's there? Vega called out. No answer. The footsteps grew louder. Closer. Then stopped. 5 meters away. Reyes lifted her flashlight and flicked it on. The beam landed on something that froze her blood. A bare foot. Just the toes. Dirty. Calloused. Motionless. Standing in the darkness just outside the reach of the light. But the ankle wasn't at a normal angle. It twisted sideways in a way that made Reyes' stomach turn. Identify yourself, she commanded. Still nothing. Arroyo whispered. Back up, slowly. As they retreated, the figure stepped forward into the edge of the light. A man's silhouette, unshaven, thin, tattered prison pants clinging to him like rags. But the face, hidden, shadowed, not wrong, but unreadable, like a blurred image. Reyes tightened her grip, hands where I can see them. The man lifted one arm slowly. His fingers were stained with dried blood, the same deep red smeared across the cell wall. He opened his mouth slightly, as if trying to speak. Then the light snapped back on. For half a second, everything became blinding white. When the brightness faded, the man was gone. Vega spun in circles. Where did he go? There's nowhere to run. Reyes looked down. On the floor, smeared in dust, was a new message. We didn't come alone. Arroyo backed up toward the exit. That's it. We're pulling out. Now! But as they reached the door, the guard outside shouted in panic. Inspector, a second block just went offline, Block 1, and another guard is missing. Reyes whispered, almost to herself. How many did they bring in? The technician's voice crackled over the radio. Inspector, there's something else. What? We recovered another image from the dead guard's phone. Reyes tensed. Send it. Her screen lit up. It was a grainy photo taken from outside CECOT's perimeter. At night, 3 silhouettes walking toward the prison. Not inmates, not guards, unidentified. And behind them, a vehicle with no plates, headlights off. Arroyo looked at her, breath short. Mariana, this isn't a gang escape. It's an infiltration. Her radio crackled again. This time, a voice they didn't recognize. Low, calm, controlled. You're already too late. The line went dead, and then the unthinkable. A loud explosion shook the eastern perimeter. The whole prison trembled. Lights cut out again, and every electronic lock in CECOT clicked. Open. Reyes stared at the dark hallway filled with inmates now stepping out of their cells. Not yelling, not attacking, just staring back at her with one shared expression. Fear, not of the officers, not of each other, but of whoever had just gotten inside. The entire mega prison groaned, like a beast awakening. Steel rattled, concrete shook, and the red emergency lights flickered back to life, washing the corridors in a pulse that felt almost like a heartbeat. The air thickened with dust and fear as every door in CECOT finished its slow, dreadful slide open. Then silence. A silence so complete that even the inmates, hardened, vicious, fearless, stood frozen. Inspector Mariana Reyes felt her breath turn shallow. Next to her, Daniel Arroyo steadied himself against the wall, still absorbing the shockwave from the blast outside. Vega whispered, "This wasn't designed to happen. The locks can't fail." They don't fail, but they had. Across the open corridor, dozens of inmates stepped into the light, their eyes darting around, searching for the threat they couldn't name. Not a single one spoke. Reyes realized something unnerving. They were afraid to make noise. That meant whoever entered CECOT wasn't here to break people out. They were here to trap them in. Arroyo grabbed his radio. "Command, emergency. We need backup. SWAT, military, anything." Only static answered, then a faint click, and the same low, controlled voice from before. "Doors open. Lights out soon. You have minutes." "Who are you?" Reyes shouted into the radio. A slight chuckle. "We're just retrieving what belongs to us." The line died. Arroyo slammed the radio against the wall. "We're blind. And someone just disabled national comms. That's military-level interference." Reyes turned toward the open cells. "Everyone listen," she shouted to the inmates. "If you want to survive, you stay where you are. You don't run. You don't move." Dozens stared back with wide, unblinking eyes. One finally stepped forward, a tattooed man with a scar running down his cheek. His voice shook. "You think we want to run? Lady, whatever you brought in here, it's not something any of us want to meet in the dark." Reyes stiffened. "What did you see?" He swallowed. "Not see. Hear." "Hear what?" "A voice." 3 floors down. Someone screaming for help. Then nothing. Door slammed. Then footsteps. Slow, like someone dragging a chain. "From which direction?" Arroyo asked. The inmate pointed at the service tunnel leading toward the intake area. Reyes felt the air shift, a subtle gust pushing outward, as if someone had opened a massive door somewhere deep inside the facility. Vega tapped his shoulder mic. "Eastern Perimeter Team, status?" "Silence." "Western Tower, respond." "Silence." "Anyone?" "Nothing." Reyes made a decision. "We're going to the intake wing." Arroyo grabbed her arm. "Mariana." "They didn't blow their way out," she said coldly. "They blew their way in. And if they came for someone, the intake wing is the only place a hidden transfer could occur. Whoever they infiltrated with is down there. And if they're armed?" Vega asked. Reyes lifted her chin. "Then we better hope they're afraid of us, too." The walk toward the intake wing felt like traveling into a different world. Every corridor shifted between light and pitch black. Smoke drifted lazily through the air from the explosion outside. Loose debris crunched under their boots. A strange hum traveled through the vents, like electricity, or whispers. Reyes forced her focus forward. As they approached the intake zone, the damage became clearer. The wall had been blown inward, not outward, meaning the attackers had planted charges from inside the structural perimeter. Reyes' guts twisted. That meant weeks of preparation. Someone had walked into this facility pretending to be staff, contractors, or support personnel, and they had hidden in plain sight. Vega stepped over a fallen beam. "We need to get structural engineers down here before this whole tunnel collapses." Arroyo pointed his flashlight at the floor. Boot prints. 3 sets. Large. Heavy. And leading deeper. The same number as the silhouettes in the photo from the dead guard's phone. Reyes followed the trail until they hit a steel door, half melted from the blast. Through the gap, she saw flickering light. A faint glow. A fire. She signaled the others, then eased through the wreckage. Beyond the door was a loading bay filled with crates and equipment. Papers scattered across the floor. A small fire burned in one corner, where sparks from severed cables had ignited cloth and cardboard. But someone had already been here, because in the center of the room sat an overturned chair, and tied to it, unconscious, was a missing guard whose face had been in the original burner photo. Alive. Barely. Reyes rushed to him, checking his pulse. He's breathing. Arroyo shined the flashlight. Something was carved into the floor around the guard. Not words. Arrows, pointing toward a hallway leading to the sub-basement storage wing. Reyes traced one with her finger. They wanted us to find him, she murmured. This whole thing it's staged. Vegas stepped closer. Staged for what? A chilling thought hit her. For us. They followed the arrows into a narrow stairwell. The temperature dropped sharply, the air turning stale. Halfway down, they heard it. A dull thud. Then another. A slow, rhythmic pounding. Metal on metal. Reyes held up her hand, signaling silence. The pounding continued, then stopped. Footsteps took its place. Hard, heavy, descending. Toward them. Reyes raised her weapon. Show yourself. A figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs, breathing hard, face bloody, hands trembling. It wasn't one of the infiltrators. It was Warden Cardenas. He stumbled forward. They're going to take him. You have to stop them. Take who? Reyes demanded. Cardenas grabbed her vest, eyes bulging with fear. You don't understand. They didn't break in for prisoners. They came for the man in isolation, the off-book transfer, the one no one was supposed to know about, the one I never logged. Arroyo froze. Who did you bring in? Cardenas whispered. A former intelligence asset. He disappeared years ago. Too dangerous to keep on the outside. Too connected to keep in a regular prison. They buried him here. No ID. No name. No file. They made me swear. Another sound cut him off. A sharp whistle. High-pitched. Close. Cardenas' eyes widened. Run. A bullet tore through the stairwell light. Sparks exploded. Darkness returned. Arroyo dove for cover. They're here! 3 shadows appeared at the bottom of the staircase. Silhouettes. The infiltrators. Reyes aimed into the darkness. Heart pounding. One of the men spoke. A calm, cold voice echoing from the stairs. The same voice from the radio. Inspector Reyes. Step aside. We only want the asset. Reyes shouted back. You're not taking anyone. A pause. Then, you already have. Arroyo turned. What does that mean? Reyes spun around. The warden was gone. Vanished. Only a trail of blood led down a side corridor into pitch darkness. The infiltrators stepped forward, weapons raised. But then, unexpectedly, footsteps thundered from behind Reyes. Dozens. The inmates from Block 4, not charging the officers, charging the infiltrators. They swarmed down the hall, screaming in panic, trying to run past the armed shadows. One of the infiltrators shouted, Move! Gunfire erupted. Chaos exploded. Reyes dove behind a pillar. Arroyo dragged Vega to cover. The lights shorted out completely. And in the darkness, beneath the screams, the shots, the pounding boots, Reyes heard a different sound. Breathing. Deep, measured, just behind her. She turned slowly. A tall silhouette stood inches away. Not an infiltrator. Not a guard. Not an inmate. Someone else. The off-book asset. His eyes glowed faintly in the red emergency light, cold and empty. His voice was barely a whisper. You shouldn't have opened the doors. Reyes froze, because in that moment she understood. He wasn't running from the infiltrators. They were running from him. Behind them, the hallway erupted in gunfire and shouts. But the asset stepped closer. CECOT was never built to keep us in, he murmured. It was built to keep me contained. And then the power died. All lights went black. All sound cut off. Just one whisper remained in the darkness. Remember this, Inspector. I wasn't the only one they buried here. And 3 months later, long after the official reports claimed everything was resolved and under control, a body was found outside the prison walls. A guard, terrified, eyes frozen wide, with a symbol carved into his arm. The same symbol from the beginning. Only this time, a new message was written beneath it. They walk among you now. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for what comes next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one.